You've entered Interstellar Chronicles. Close your eyes and drift into another world, a place where stars whisper forgotten names, where time folds and destinies collide across galaxies. Your journey begins now. A humble envoy's courage claimed a Kha'Vren commander's heart. HFY sci-fi story. The galaxy was a merciless crucible, a vast expanse of cold stars and colder hearts, where the strong devoured the weak, and the weak learned to kneel or perish. The Concordium of Spheres, a sprawling alliance of alien species, had long dismissed humanity as a fleeting anomaly. Frail-bodied, short-lived, their emotions a chaotic liability in a universe that rewarded ruthlessness. To the towering Kha'Vren, with their obsidian scales and warrior codes. The crystalline Eseswedich, who sang their thoughts in harmonic vibrations that could shatter steel or soothe minds. And the telepathic Vorin, who wove thoughts like intricate tapestries. Humans were barely a footnote. Fit for menial labor, perhaps, but unworthy of respect. Their bones snapped like twigs. Their minds wavered under strain, and their passions burned too briefly to matter, like sparks lost in a void. The galaxy saw humanity as a curiosity, a species that clung to a backwater planet, scrabbling in the dirt while others conquered stars. Their dreams dismissed as the delusions of a fleeting race. But the galaxy had never met Daniel Carter. The story begins in the shadow of a diplomatic catastrophe aboard the Celestine Spire, a moon-sized station orbiting the gas giant Valthera, its rings shimmering like liquid silver against the endless black, a celestial crown that dwarfed the station's grandeur. The Celestine Spire was a marvel of Concordium engineering, halls lined with bioluminescent vines that pulsed in rhythm with the station's heartbeat, their glow shifting from emerald to sapphire in hypnotic waves, casting soft light on the delegates. Gravity-defying arches twisting in impossible geometries, carved with runes that whispered stories of forgotten wars, their surfaces cool to the touch, and viewports revealing the swirling, storm-charged clouds of Valthera below, their purples and golds a stark contrast to the void, their beauty a reminder of the galaxy's indifference, a beauty that could kill as easily as it captivated. Representatives from 100 worlds gathered to negotiate trade routes, territorial claims, and the fate of unaligned systems like Earth's. Their voices a cacophony of clicks, hums, and growls. Their agendas as sharp as their claws or blades, their eyes or sensory organs glinting in the dim light. Daniel Carter, a low-ranking human envoy, was there as a token gesture, Earth's desperate plea for a seat at the galactic table, met with barely concealed scorn, a formality to appease ambassadors who clung to the naive belief that words could earn respect in a galaxy ruled by power. At 32, Daniel was wiry, with tousled brown hair that fell into his eyes and hazel irises that held a quiet intensity, like a man who'd weathered storms on a dusty colony world but still dared to hope. His gaze carrying the weight of losses he rarely spoke of. His outdated datapad, its screen scratched and flickering, hummed softly in his hands, a relic of Earth's struggling tech, and his patched jacket, frayed at the cuffs from years of wear, marked him as an outsider among the sleek, scale-clad aliens, its faded blue a stark contrast to their polished armor. His presence was an afterthought, a nod to Earth's persistence, but Daniel carried no illusions about his role. He carried something else, a stubborn streak, forged in the crucible of a colony world where survival meant outthinking the elements, where hope was a defiance of despair, a fire that burned in his chest despite the galaxy's cold. The Kha'Vren delegation, led by Commander Vera Tgar, dominated the proceedings. Vera was a vision of lethal grace. 7 feet tall, her obsidian scales glinting like polished armor under the station's artificial light, each scale etched with faint patterns that told of her clan's victories on their volcanic homeworld, Karzul, a world of lava rivers and ash-choked skies. Her amber eyes, sharp enough to cut through deceit, burned with a fire that silenced rooms, their slit pupils narrowing with every word she deemed unworthy, their depths holding a storm of duty and defiance. Her tail, adorned with ceremonial silver rings etched with ancient runes, flicked with controlled precision, a silent warning to those who dared challenge her, its movements as deliberate as a blade's arc, its rings clinking like a war drum. The Kha'Vren were warriors, their culture forged in endless wars where only the strongest survived, their code prizing strength above all else. Strength of body, of will, of unyielding resolve. A code that left no room for weakness, for doubt, for anything less than perfection. To Vera, the human sitting across the obsidian negotiation table, fidgeting with his clunky device, was an insult to her presence, a mockery of the Concordium's grandeur. A creature so fragile it seemed a miracle he still breathed. His soft skin and fleeting lifespan a joke in a hull built on power. "Why is this creature here?" she hissed to her aide, her voice a low rumble that vibrated through the chamber, her words dripping with disdain, her tail lashing once for emphasis, its silver rings clinking like a challenge, the sound echoing in the silence. The translator in Daniel's ear caught every syllable, and he felt the weight of countless alien gazes. Some amused, some pitying, all dismissive, their eyes or sensory organs glinting in the dim light, the Voron's tendrils twitching as they probed the room's emotions, their telepathic hum a faint buzz in his mind. "Humans are soft," Vera continued, her claws tapping the table, each click a deliberate challenge, her scales bristling slightly, her voice carrying across the chamber like a storm's warning. "Their bones snap like twigs, their minds buckle under pressure, their lives flicker out like dying stars. They are prey, not peers. What can they offer the Concordium?" Daniel's jaw tightened, his knuckles whitening around his datapad, its faint hum a comfort against the sting of her words. But he kept his voice steady, his accent carrying the faint cadence of Earth's northern plains, where he'd grown up fixing broken harvesters under a relentless sun, the dust clinging to his skin like a second hide, the wind carrying songs of survival. "We're here to negotiate access to the Orion trade lanes, Commander," he said, his tone calm but firm, his eyes meeting hers without flinching, a quiet defiance in his gaze that made her tail twitch. "Earth has resources, rare minerals like tritanium, biotech innovations that can heal neural damage, and a workforce that doesn't quit, no matter the odds. We may not have your strength, but we have our own worth, our ideas, our resilience, our will to build something better." Vera's laughter was a sharp, barking sound, echoed by her entourage of armored Kha'Vren, their scales glinting like a chorus of blades drawn in unison, their tails swaying in amusement, their silver rings clinking in harmony, their amber eyes narrowing with shared scorn. "Resources? Your planet is a speck of dust, human," she said, her voice dripping with scorn, her amber eyes narrowing, her presence a storm barely contained, her tail curling slightly as if ready to strike, its tip grazing the floor. "You think your trinkets impress us? You think your words carry weight in a hall built on power, where strength is the only currency?" She leaned forward, her claws grazing the table, leaving faint scratches in the obsidian, her voice lowering to a dangerous purr, her scales catching the light like polished armor. "Prove your worth or leave this table to those who belong, those who can stand without breaking." The chamber fell silent, the air thick with tension, the bioluminescent vines dimming as if sensing the mood, their glow fading to a muted teal, casting long shadows across the delegates, the runes on the arches seeming to pulse in the quiet. Daniel's heart pounded, his pulse racing in his ears, but he met her gaze, his hazel eyes unyielding despite the fear coiling in his gut, his hands steady despite the weight of her scorn. He was no warrior, no diplomat trained in the art of galactic intrigue, but he was a man who'd faced raiders, storms, and loss, who'd learned that courage was standing up when every instinct screamed to run, who'd carried his mother's lullaby through a world that tried to silence it. "Worth isn't measured in claws or scales, Commander," he said, his voice quiet but resolute, each word deliberate, carrying the weight of a man who'd faced impossible odds and refused to break, his eyes holding hers with a fire that matched her own. "It's in what you do when the odds are stacked against you. Earth's here to show you what we can do, not just for ourselves, but for the galaxy, if you'll give us a chance." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates scoffed, their alien tongues clicking or humming in derision, their scales or feathers bristling, their eyes glinting with amusement. Others leaned forward, intrigued, their sensory organs fixed on the human, the Voron's tendrils twitching as they probed his mind and found no deceit, only a stubborn resolve that puzzled them, their telepathic hums softening in curiosity. The SSYTH, Their crystalline forms shimmering in the dim light vibrated faintly, their harmonic thoughts a low buzz, their eyes facets of glowing crystal, narrowing as they studied him. Vera's eyes narrowed further, her amusement tinged with a flicker of curiosity, like a predator sizing up unexpected prey that refused to flee, her tail lashing once, then stilling, its silver rings glinting in the light, her scales shimmering as if reflecting her thoughts. "Bold words for one so fragile," she said, her voice dripping with challenge, her lips curling to reveal a hint of her razor-sharp teeth, her presence a storm that seemed to draw the air from the room. "Let's see if you survive the week, human. Words are cheap, actions are not." The summit's first day ended an uneasy détente, the delegates dispersing to their quarters, their whispers following Daniel like a shadow, their eyes lingering on the human who dared to speak back to a Kha'Vren commander, their voices a mix of mockery and intrigue. He returned to his small, utilitarian room, its walls bare except for a single hollow frame displaying a looping image of Earth's plains under a stormy sky, the grasses swaying in a wind he could almost feel, the clouds heavy with the promise of renewal, the only piece of home he'd brought. He sat on the edge of his bunk, his datapad in his hands, replaying Vera's words, her disdain cutting deeper than he'd admit, a wound that stung more than the bruises from his youth, more than the scars from raiders who'd taken his family. But he pushed it aside, focusing on the trade proposals, his fingers tracing patterns on the screen, his mind already working through strategies to prove Earth's worth, his hazel eyes reflecting the hollow frame's glow, a quiet determination burning within them, a fire that refused to be snuffed out. He worked late into the station's artificial night, the hum of his datapad a soft counterpoint to the station's pulse, the melody of that lullaby, his mother's gift, playing faintly in his mind, its notes a reminder of why he was here. Not for glory, but for the people he'd left behind, for the colonies struggling to survive, for a future where Earth could stand tall. He sketched out trade routes, calculated resource yields, cross-referenced alien tech with Earth's biotech, his fingers moving with a precision born of years spent fixing machines, his mind a whirl of numbers and hope, his heart steady despite the weight of the galaxy's scorn. He didn't notice the station's lights dimming, the viewport revealing Valtherus storms, their purples and golds a mirror to his own resolve, a beauty that carried both danger and promise. That night, chaos erupted. A rogue faction of SSYTH, crystalline beings whose bodies shimmered like living prisms and who communicated through harmonic vibrations that could shatter steel or soothe minds, sabotaged the Celestine Spire's core reactor. Alarms wailed, their pitch warbling as the station's gravity fluctuated, sending diplomats scrambling across tilting floors, their robes and scales catching on debris, their cries drowned out by the groan of metal, the air thick with panic. The SSYTH radicals, zealots who believed the Concordium's expansion threatened their sacred nebulae, stellar nurseries they revered as the cradle of their gods, had planted a quantum destabilizer, a device capable of collapsing the station into a singularity, obliterating everyone aboard and sending a message to the galaxy. No one defies the SSYTH, no one treads on their holy grounds. Daniel, caught in a collapsing corridor, navigated a maze of sparking conduits and shattered panels, his datapad clutched like a lifeline, its screen flickering as he tried to access the station's schematics, his boots slipping on the slick floor, his breath coming in sharp gasps, his heart pounding in his chest. The air was thick with ozone and the acrid scent of burning circuits, the walls trembling as the station groaned, its bioluminescent vines flickering erratically, casting wild shadows that danced like specters, their glow pulsing in panic. He rounded a corner and found himself face to face with Vera, her plasma blade carving through debris with violet fury, its glow casting stark shadows across her scales, her movements a dance of lethal precision, her tail lashing in agitation, its silver rings clinking like a war drum, her amber eyes blazing with urgency, her scales bristling as she charged toward the reactor. "Move, human!" she snarled, shoving him aside with enough force to bruise his shoulder, her claws grazing his jacket, her tail lashing once, its tip grazing the floor, her presence a storm that seemed to draw the air from the corridor. But as she cleared a path through the debris, a jagged shard of crystal from a shattered Eswedish drone pierced her arm, pinning her to the wall with a sickening crunch, her blood dark and viscous, with a faint metallic sheen. Pulling on the floor, it sent sharp in the air, a stark contrast to the ozone. She roared, struggling, her immense strength useless against the searing pain, her tail thrashing, knocking debris aside, its silver rings clinking wildly, her scales shimmering with a mix of rage and agony, her amber eyes blazing with defiance, refusing to yield even as her strength faltered. Daniel froze, his breath catching, his heart hammering against his ribs, his datapad slipping in his sweat-slick hands, its screen flickering in the chaos. He could run, should run. He was no warrior, no hero. He was a clerk with a knack for numbers. A man who'd spent his youth repairing machines on a colony world where dust storms blotted out the stars, where survival meant outthinking the elements, not fighting them, where courage was fixing a harvester under a raider's gun, not facing a galactic threat. He'd seen death, raiders who'd taken his family, storms that buried homes, faces that haunted his dreams. But he'd never faced a choice like this, a moment where running meant abandoning someone who burned with a fire he couldn't ignore. Something in Vera's defiant glare, the way she refused to scream despite the agony, stirred him. It wasn't just her strength, it was her fire, her unyielding will, a spark that resonated with the stubborn hope he'd carried all his life, the hope that had kept him going after loss, after despair, the hope that said no one was beyond saving, that even a Kha'Vren commander who saw him as prey was worth risking everything for. He dropped his datapad, its screen cracking further as it hit the floor, its hum silenced, and grabbed a jagged piece of metal from the wreckage, his hands trembling as he pried the crystal free, ignoring the sharp edges that bit into his palms, his blood mixing with hers on the floor, the pain a distant echo against his resolve, his breath ragged, his eyes fixed on the task, his muscles straining as the crystal gave way, falling with a clatter that echoed in the corridor. Vera stared, stunned, her amber eyes wide with disbelief, her tail stilling as he tore a strip from his jacket to bind her wound. His fingers clumsy but determined, his hands shaking from the effort, his bloodied palms leaving smears on the fabric, his breath coming in sharp gasps, his hazel eyes meeting hers for a moment, a silent vow. "Why?" she demanded, her voice raw, her scales shimmering faintly as if reflecting her confusion, her eyes searching his face, probing for answers she couldn't grasp, her tail twitching as if unsure whether to lash or curl. "You could have fled. Why risk yourself for me? A stranger, a Kha'Vren who mocked you, who saw you as nothing. You owe me nothing, human. Leaving people behind isn't my style," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the pain in his hands, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet resolve that seemed to unsettle her, his hazel gaze holding a warmth that cut through her defenses, a sincerity that made her tail still, her scales softening as if mirroring her thoughts. "You're not just a Kha'Vren. You're someone worth saving, someone who fights for what's right, even if you don't see it that way. You're more than your claws, Vera, more than your wars. Now come on, we've got a bomb to stop." Vera's eyes lingered on him, her expression unreadable, her scales shimmering with a mix of confusion and respect, a flicker of something, curiosity, perhaps more, passing through her amber gaze, her tail curling slightly as if acknowledging his words. She nodded, pulling herself free with a grunt, her wounded arm held close, her plasma blade still humming in her other hand, its violet glow a beacon in the chaos, her scales gleaming with a fire that matched her resolve. Together, they navigated the trembling corridors, Vera's blade clearing the way through debris and rogue drones, their crystalline forms darting like lethal shadows, their harmonic vibrations shaking the air. Daniel's datapad, retrieved and cracked but functional, guiding them through the station's labyrinthine layout, its schematics flickering on the screen, his fingers leaving bloodied smudges as he worked, his breath steady despite the pain, his hazel eyes fixed on the path ahead. The Celestine Spire's reactor chamber was a cathedral of machinery, its walls pulsing with energy conduits that hummed like a dying star, their glow casting eerie shadows across the vaulted ceiling, the air heavy with the scent of ionized metal and the faint tang of Vera's blood, the runes on the arches seeming to pulse in time with the conduits. The quantum destabilizer sat at the chamber's heart, a glowing orb the size of a small car, emitting waves of distortion that warped the air, bending light into impossible shapes that hurt the eyes. Its surface etched with SSWH runes that pulsed like a heartbeat, their vibrations resonating deep in the bones. A language of sound and resonance that defied brute force. A song of destruction that threatened to unravel everything. Vera, her arm still bleeding through Daniel's makeshift bandage, scanned the device with her gauntlet sensor, her claws flexing in frustration as the interface defied her. Its harmonic codes a labyrinth no Kha'Vren could navigate, her tail lashing once in agitation, its silver rings clinking, her amber eyes narrowing as she studied the orb. "This is beyond me," she admitted, her voice low, almost a growl, her scales bristling with a mix of frustration and resolve, her eyes flicking to Daniel, a silent acknowledgement of his unexpected worth. "The SSYTHS tech is a maze of sound, not steel. My blade cannot cut through this, nor can my strength break its song." Daniel, however, had spent years studying alien systems. Not out of ambition, but a restless curiosity that had kept him up late nights, poring over smuggled data files in a cramped colony hab. His only light a flickering bulb, his only company the hum of machines, his mind hungry for knowledge that could mean survival, that could give his people a chance against a galaxy that saw them as nothing. He knelt beside the device, his data pad flickering as he cross-referenced as would each frequency patterns, his fingers flying across the cracked screen, his brow furrowed in concentration, his breath steady despite the chaos, his bloodied hands leaving smudges on the device, his hazel eyes reflecting the orb's glow, a fire burning within them that matched Vera's own. Vera loomed over him, her impatience palpable, her tail flicking like a whip, its silver rings clinking, her claws flexing as if itching to tear the device apart, her scales bristling with urgency, her amber eyes blazing as she watched him work. "This is no time for your toys, human," she growled, her voice thick with urgency, her tail lashing once, the air vibrating with her tension, her scales catching the orb's light, refracting it into subtle rainbows. "Step aside before you doom us all." "Give me a second," Daniel muttered, his voice calm despite the tremor in his hands, his eyes fixed on the screen, his mind racing through patterns he'd studied in stolen moments, patterns that could mean life or death, his breath steady as he worked. "It's not about strength, it's about resonance." The SSYTH use sound to lock their tech, like a song with a key. If we match the frequency, we can shut it down. It's not a fight. It's like singing back to it, finding its harmony. Vera scoffed, her scales bristling further, her tail lashing once, but she held her tongue, watching as Daniel adjusted the pad's output, his movements precise despite the blood on his hands, the pain in his palms a dull ache he ignored, his breath steady as he worked, his hazel eyes narrowing as he pieced together the puzzle. A low hum filled the chamber, a counterpoint to the destabilizer's ominous pulse, and the orb's glow flickered, its distortions wavering like ripples in water, the runes pulsing erratically, their vibrations softening. "Keep going," Vera said, her voice softer, almost curious, as if seeing him through new eyes, her tail stilling as she leaned closer, her scales catching the orb's light, her amber eyes fixed on him, a warmth breaking through her warrior's facade. Minutes ticked by, the station trembling as the destabilizer's countdown pulsed, each vibration a reminder of their dwindling time, the conduits flickering as the station's system strained, the air thick with tension, the runes on the arches seeming to pulse in warning. Daniel's hands shook, sweat beading on his brow, his side aching from the strain of kneeling, his bloodied palms leaving smears on the datapad, his breath steady despite the pressure, his mind a whirlwind of calculations and intuition, his hazel eyes narrowing as he adjusted the frequency again, piecing together fragments of knowledge like a puzzle, his fingers moving with a precision born of desperation, of hope, of a belief that even a human could make a difference. The hum deepened, harmonizing with the device, and the orb's glow dimmed, its distortions fading, the runes pulsing slower, their vibrations softening, the chamber falling still, the air clearing of its oppressive weight. Finally, the hum fell silent, and the station stabilized, its alarms quieting like a held breath released, the conduits glow steadying, the runes on the arches dimming, the chamber's heartbeat slowing to a calm rhythm. Vera stared at him, her amber eyes unreadable, her chest heaving from the effort of standing through her pain. her wounded arm trembling slightly, her scales shimmering as if reflecting her awe, her tail curling slightly as if in respect, her eyes searching his face, probing for the source of his strength, her scales softening as if mirroring her thoughts, a crack in the armor of her beliefs. "You disabled it," she said, her voice low, almost reverent, as if the words were foreign to her. Her tail stilling completely, its silver rings glinting in the dim light, her amber eyes glistening with a mix of respect and wonder. Daniel exhaled, slumping against the console, his hands bloodied and trembling, his side aching, a faint grin tugging at his lips despite the exhaustion. His hazel eyes meeting hers with a quiet pride, a warmth in his gaze that matched the spark in hers, a fire that refused to be snuffed out. "Yeah," he said, his voice hoarse but steady, a warmth in his gaze that matched the spark in hers, his breath steady despite the pain. "Guess I'm not just prey." For the first time, Vera's lips twitched, a Kha'Vren smile, sharp and fleeting, like a blade catching starlight, her eyes softening as they lingered on him, a warmth breaking through her warrior's facade, a crack that seemed to widen with every moment, her tail swaying slightly, its silver rings glinting as if in acknowledgement. "You are no prey," she murmured, her voice soft but resonant, carrying a note of respect that hadn't been there before, her scales shimmering as if reflecting a new understanding, her amber eyes a storm of emotions she couldn't name but felt deeply. "You are unexpected, Daniel Carter. You defy what I thought possible, what I was taught to believe." In the days that followed, the summit resumed, but the dynamic had shifted irrevocably. The delegates, shaken by the attack, spoke with new urgency, their voices weaving a fragile truce of survival, their eyes lingering on Vera and Daniel, the Ka pair whose actions had saved them all, their stories whispered in the halls of the Celestine Spire. Vera's, bound by her Kha'Vren's honor to acknowledge Daniel's aid, insisted she join her delegation's strategy sessions, her voice brooking no argument strong, her tail lashing at any who dared question her, its silver rings of her glinting tail in warning, her amber eyes blazing with a fire that silenced dissent, her presence a storm that refused to be broken. Her warriors mocked her, whispering in their guttural tongue that she'd grown soft, Era had that bewitched her the human with his frail courage, their scales bristling as they sneered, their tails swayed in mock pity. She silenced them, her with a glare that could shatter stone, her voice a growl that echoed through the chamber, flexing her presence, a reminder that of honor, her loyalty to Vera's code, and to Daniel was unshakable. Daniel, meanwhile, navigated the alien world politics with a quiet confidence, his subtle strength surprising even himself. He insights spoke into with trade a calm logistics, his Drew voice steady, his ideas mind sparking with fire possibility. He outlined Earth's potential, not its might, but its ingenuity, its ability to find forged solutions where others saw only obstacles. He described Earth's biotech, capable of healing wounds that even Kha'Vren medicine struggled with, its neural patches knitting minds back together, a gift born of necessity on a world scarred by war, its tritanium mines, small but pure, vital for starship hulls that could withstand the void's fury, and its people, who built communities in wastelands, who sang under starless skies, who refused to break no matter the odds, their resilience a strength the galaxy had overlooked, a fire that burned. In their hearts, a fire he carried in his own. The Vorin, their minds weaving through his thoughts, paused, their tendrils stilling, their glowing eyes narrowing as they reconsidered the human they dismissed, their telepathic hums softening in acknowledgement, a rare sign of respect. The SSYH delegates, their crystalline forms shimmering in the chamber's light, vibrated faintly, their harmonic thoughts a low buzz, their eyes, facets of glowing crystal, fixed on Daniel as he spoke, his words resonating like their own harmonic songs, a melody of defiance and hope. Even the other Kha'Vren, their scales bristling at first, began to listen, their tails stilling as Daniel outlined trade routes that could benefit their worlds, his datapad projecting holograms that danced like starfields, his voice steady despite the weight of their scrutiny, his hazel eyes burning with a quiet fire that matched Vera's own. Vera watched him closely, her disdain giving way to a reluctant fascination, her amber eyes tracking his every move, her tail stilling when he spoke, its silver rings catching the light, her scales shimmering as if reflecting his words, her heart stirring with something she couldn't name, a warmth that defied her training, her code, her world. She found herself drawn to his quiet strength, the way he stood against a galaxy that saw him as nothing, the way he fought not with blades but with ideas, with hope, with a heart that refused to yield, a heart that made her question everything she'd been taught, everything she believed about strength, about honor, about what it meant to be alive. During a late-night session, as the station's artificial stars glowed outside the viewport, casting a soft light across the chamber, she found him alone, studying a holographic map of the Orion trade lanes, its blue and gold lines swirling like a cosmic dance, a testament to his relentless drive, his refusal to give up. His datapad was propped against a cup of bitter earth coffee, its steam curling in the air, the scent alien and sharp to her senses, yet strangely comforting, a piece of his world brought to hers, a reminder of the man behind the Envoy, the man who'd risked everything for her. A faint hum came from the pad, a soft melody of strings and wind, a song from Earth's plains that spoke of open skies and endless horizons, its notes tugging at something deep within her, a feeling she couldn't name but didn't resist, a warmth that made her tail sway, her scales shimmer, her heart race. The chamber was quiet, the other delegates gone, the stations hum a distant backdrop, the viewport revealing Valthera's storms, their purples and golds a mirror to the melody's wistful beauty, a beauty that carried both danger and promise, a beauty that reminded her of him. "You never stop, do you?" Vera asked, her voice low, almost gentle, a stark contrast to her usual commanding tone, her tail curling slightly as she approached, her scales catching the starlight, refracting it into subtle rainbows that danced across her form, her amber eyes fixed on him, a warmth in their depths that she hadn't shown before. She stood closer than protocol allowed, her presence a mix of strength and warmth, her claws resting lightly on the table, their tips grazing the obsidian, her tail swaying slightly, its silver rings glinting in the dim light. Daniel glanced up, startled, his hand brushing through his hair, a nervous habit she'd begun to notice, his hazel eyes catching the light, reflecting the map's glow, a warmth in his gaze that made her tail twitch, a spark that matched the fire in her own heart. "Someone's got to make sure Earth gets a fair deal," he said, his voice carrying a quiet resolve, a faint smile tugging at his lips, his fingers tapping the datapad, leaving faint smudges from his still healing hands, his breath steady despite the weight of her gaze. "We're not as strong as you, but we're not nothing. We've got ideas, ways to make things work, ways to build instead of break, to make the galaxy a little less cold, a little more connected." Vera tilted her head, her scales refracting the light, her eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to unravel him, her tail brushing the floor with a soft scrape, its silver rings glinting in the dim light, her amber eyes softening with a warmth she hadn't shown before, a vulnerability that surprised even her. "Strength is not just in the body," she said, her voice thoughtful, as if testing the words, her tail stilling as she stepped closer, her presence filling the space between them, her claws flexing as if resisting the urge to touch him, her heart racing in a way she hadn't felt since her first battle. "I see that now. You intrigue me, Daniel Carter. You are not what I expected. Not prey, not weak, but something else. Something my people have no word for. Something that burns brighter than any blade, any star." He blushed, his cheeks reddening under her gaze, and used to its intensity, the way it seemed to strip away his defenses and see the man beneath, his hand rubbing the back of his neck, a nervous laugh escaping him, his eyes flicking to the map, then back to her, a warmth in his gaze that matched hers, a spark that made her heart pound. "I'm just a guy trying to keep up," he said, his voice soft but steady, a faint grin tugging at his lips, his hazel eyes bright with a quiet fire. "You're the one leading armies, commanding respect, cutting through anything in your way. I'm just me trying to do right by my people, trying to show them, and maybe you, that we're worth something." She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet strangely warm, like a hearth fire in a storm, her tail curling slightly as if to encircle him. Though it stopped short, its silver rings glinting, her claws flexing as if resisting the urge to touch him, her amber eyes locked on his, their depths holding a vulnerability that defied her training, her code, her world. "No," she said, her voice firm but soft, her eyes glistening with a warmth she hadn't shown before, a crack in the armor she'd worn all her life, a warmth that made her heart race, her scales shimmer, her tail sway. "You are more. You see what others miss. You act when others flee. You saved me. Not just my life, but something deeper, something I thought lost. You make me question what strength means, what honor means, what it means to live. You make me want more than war, more than duty, more than the endless fire of Karzal." Their eyes locked, and for a moment the galaxy fell away. The hum of the station, the distant murmur of diplomats, the weight of their worlds, all faded, leaving only the space between them, charged with something unspoken. A spark that neither could name but both felt, the air electric with possibility, the melody from Daniel's datapad weaving through the silence, its notes a bridge between their worlds, a song of open skies and endless horizons, a song of hope. Daniel's breath caught, his heart racing, his fingers twitching as if to reach for her, his datapad forgotten on the table, its hologram flickering, its light casting soft shadows across their faces. Vera's tail swayed slightly, her scales shimmering, her claws flexing, her amber eyes holding his, a warmth in their depths that made her heart pound, a feeling both thrilling and terrifying, a feeling that made her want to run and stay all at once. But before either could speak, alarms blared, their shrill cries shattering the moment, the chamber's lights flashing red, the viewport's glow dimming as the station systems screamed in protest, the floor trembling, the bioluminescent vines flickering wildly, their glow pulsing in panic, the air thick with the scent of ozone and fear. A second SSY attack, this time targeting the summit's central chamber, where the Concordium's leaders were gathered to finalize the treaties, their voices drowned out by the chaos, their guards scrambling to respond, their cries echoing through the corridors, a cacophony of panic and defiance. The assault was a storm of crystal and fire, relentless and apocalyptic. The SSYH radicals, enraged by their failure, launched a suicide offensive, their drones exploding in waves of shrapnel that tore through the station's defenses, shredding metal and flesh alike, their crystalline forms reflecting the chaos in a kaleidoscope of destruction, their harmonic screams disorienting, vibrating through the walls, threatening to bring the chamber down, their shards slicing through armor and flesh, their vibrations shaking the air. Vera fought like a tempest, her plasma blade a blur of violet fury, cutting down drones with a precision born of centuries of training, her scales gleaming with sweat and blood, her tail lashing to deflect attacks, its silver rings glinting in the chaos, her amber eyes blazing with a fire that matched the station's alarms, her movements a dance of lethal grace, a warrior in her element, a storm unleashed. But the enemy's numbers were overwhelming, even for her, their shards slicing through her armor, leaving shallow cuts across her scales, their vibrations disorienting her senses, their drones darting like lethal shadows, their harmonic pulses shaking her resolve, threatening to break her focus. Daniel, armed only with a scavenged stun baton, stayed at her side, his movements clumsy but determined, his eyes scanning for threats, his datapad tucked into his belt, its music silenced, its screen cracked but still functional, his breath coming in sharp gasps as he fought to keep up, his heart pounding with a fear he refused to let win, his hazel eyes fixed on Vera, a fierce determination burning within them, a fire that matched her own. "Stay back," Vera roared, her voice thick with frustration as she parried a drone's attack, her tail lashing to deflect another, her scales bristling as she fought to protect him, her heart pounding with a fear she refused to name, a fear not for herself but for him, a fear that made her claws tremble, her tail curl, her amber eyes blaze with a desperate fire. But Daniel didn't listen. He tackled the SSWH drone that lunged for her, short-circuiting it with a jury-rigged pulse from his datapad, the device sparking in his hands, its screen cracking further, the effort draining what little strength he had left, his muscles screaming in protest, his breath ragged, his vision blurring, his heart racing with a fire that refused to be snuffed out. The effort cost him. A crystal shard grazed his side, slicing through fabric and flesh, blood soaking his shirt. The pain sharp enough to steal his breath. A second shard nicking his arm, leaving a trail of red that dripped onto the floor. A third catching his shoulder, a shallow cut that burned like fire. His legs threatening to give out, his vision swimming, his strength fading, his hazel eyes fixed on Vera, a fierce determination burning within them, a fire that refused to yield. He stumbled, his vision blurring, his legs threatening to give out, but he stayed on his feet, gripping the baton tighter, his jaw set against the agony, his eyes fixed on Vera, a silent vow to protect her, to stand with her, to fight for her, no matter the cost, his heart pounding with a truth he couldn't deny, a truth that burned brighter than any star. Vera's eyes widened, her warrior's composure cracking like glass, her tail freezing mid-motion, her scales shimmering as if reflecting her shock, her heart pounding in a way she hadn't felt since her first battle, a fear that wasn't for herself but for him, a fear that made her claws tremble, her tail curl, her amber eyes blaze with a desperate fire, a fire that burned for him. "Foolish human," she snarled, catching him as he swayed, her claws gentle despite her anger, her arms supporting his weight, her plasma blade still humming in her other hand, her tail curling protectively around him, its silver rings glinting in the chaos, her scales gleaming with a fire that matched her resolve, her heart racing with a truth she couldn't deny, a truth that made her want to roar and weep all at once. "Why do you keep risking yourself? You are not one of us. You are not bound by our codes, our honor. Why do you fight for me? Because you're worth it?" Daniel gasped, his voice raw with pain and truth, his hazel eyes meeting hers with a fierce sincerity that seemed to pierce her soul, his hand clutching her arm for support, his blood staining her scales, a mark that felt more intimate than any touch, a vow that burned brighter than any star, his breath shallow but steady, his heart pounding with a fire that refused to be snuffed out. "And because I'm not letting you fight alone. Not now, not ever. You're more than a commander, Vera. You're someone I believe in. Someone I care about. More than I can say." The words hit Vera like a blade, her scales shimmering as if reflecting her emotions, her amber eyes wide with a shock, her tail tightening its curl around him, a warmth breaking through her guarded heart, fierce, unguarded warmth that surprised even her heart. She raced her with a fire, fought with renewed fury, carving a path to safety through the chaos, her Daniel's blade weight singing in a song her of arms, vengeance shielding and protection, her plasma blade a blur, each strike a vow to keep him safe. She fought her with tail lashing afire, her tail lashing to keep drones at bay, her amber eyes burning with a blaze that matched her heart, her resolve, scales a-gleaming with a fiery testament to her will to protect. When the battle ended, the S's rebels defeated, their crystalline forms shattered across the chamber like a broken mosaic, the air thick with the scent of ozone and blood, the station's hum a low mournful hymn. Vera knelt beside Daniel, her claws gentle as she checked his wounds with care, her touch lingering, her breath uneven, her eyes glistening with a tear, her amber eyes reflecting the station's dim flicker, her tail still curled around him, a shield against the world's cruelty. "You are impossible," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion, her eyes searching his face, her scales softening as if mirroring her heart, her tail tightening its curl, its silver rings glinting in the soft light, her claws resting lightly on his hand, a touch that was both fierce and tender, a vow that burned brighter than any star. "I thought humans weak, but you are the strongest soul I have known. You defy everything I believed, everything my people taught me. You make me question everything. Strength, honor, what it means to live, to feel. You make me want to be more, to be worthy of you." Daniel managed a weak smile, his hand brushing hers, the contact sending a quiet spark through them both, a warmth that defied the cold of the galaxy. His fingers trembling but steady, his eyes never leaving hers, a warmth in his gaze that matched the fire in hers, a fire that refused to be snuffed out, a fire that burned for her. "Told you," he whispered, his voice hoarse but steady, a faint grin tugging at his lips despite the pain, his breath shallow but determined, his hazel eyes glistening with a warmth that made her heart race, Her scales shimmer, her tail sway. It's not about claws. It's about not giving up on yourself or on others, especially on someone like you, Vera. Someone who burns brighter than any star I've ever seen. Vera's breath caught, her scales shimmering, her claws tightening gently around his hand, her tail curling closer, a gesture of protection, of trust, of something deeper that she couldn't name but felt in every fiber of her being. A feeling that burned brighter than any star, that made her heart race in a way she'd never known. A feeling that made her want to roar and weep all at once. A feeling that changed everything. She leaned closer, her forehead grazing his. A Kha'Vren gesture of trust, rare and sacred. A vow deeper than words, her scales warm against his skin. Her amber eyes glistening with unshed tears. A vulnerability she'd never shown. Not in 100 battles, not in a lifetime of war. A vulnerability that was as fierce as her blade, as enduring as her resolve. A vulnerability that was hers to give, and his to hold. The summit concluded with Earth granted a provisional seat in the Concordium. A hard-won victory thanks to Daniel's ingenuity and Vera's fierce endorsement. Her voice carrying weight that silenced doubters. Her tail lashing at any who dared question her judgment. Her scales gleaming with a pride that was as much for him as for her people. Her amber eyes blazing with a fire that spoke of change, of a future where strength and heart could coexist. The treaties were signed. The Orion trade lanes open to Earth, a small but vital step toward recognition, a testament to Daniel's relentless drive, his quiet courage, his belief that even a speck of dust could shine, a belief that had sparked something greater, something that burned across worlds, across stars, across hearts. But the true story unfolded in the quiet moments after, in the sterile light of the medical bay where Daniel recovered, his side, arm, and shoulder bandaged, his strength slowly returning, his datapad resting on the table, its cracked screen still displaying the Orion trade map, its faint hum playing that Earth melody, soft and haunting, a lullaby about stars that never faded, a song that carried his mother's love, his people's hope, his own heart. Vera sat beside his bed, her presence a constant, her hand resting near his, her scales brushing his skin as she spoke. Her voice softer than any Kha'Vren warrior's had a right to be. Her tail curled around the chair, its silver rings glinting in the dim light. A silent vow of protection, of trust, of something deeper that grew with every word, every glance, every touch. She told him of Karzul's lava rivers, their glow a reminder of her people's fire, but also their destruction. Their endless cycle of war that left no room for dreams, no room for peace. Of a childhood spent training, her claws sharpened before she could dream, her heart hardened before she could love, her laughter silenced by duty, her brother's voice a memory that haunted her, his loss a wound that never healed. Her voice trembled as she spoke of her duty, her burden, the weight of leading her people in a galaxy that offered no mercy, her tail tightening its curl as if anchoring her, her amber eyes glistening with a pain she'd buried for years, a pain she shared with him, a pain that made her heart race. Her scales shimmer, her claws tremble, a pain that was hers to carry and his to ease. Daniel listened, his eyes soft, his fingers tracing the edge of his blanket as he shared stories of Earth, its plains, their storms a mirror to his own struggles, but also their beauty, their promise of renewal, their grasses swaying under a sky that never gave up, its music, its stubborn hope, the way humans clung to dreams despite their fragility. Their short lives a canvas for defiance, a canvas for love. He told her of colony nights under a sky choked with dust, of songs sung to keep despair at bay, of a family he'd lost to a raid. His mother's lullaby, his father's quiet strength, his sister's laughter, whose memory drove him to keep going, to fight for a future where no one was left behind, where hope could thrive in the darkest places, where love could burn brighter than any star. He spoke of that lullaby, a melody about stars that never faded, and hummed it softly, the notes filling the room, making Vera's tail sway, her scales shimmering with a warmth she didn't understand but didn't resist, her amber eyes bright with a quiet wonder, a joy she'd never known, a joy that made her heart race, her claws tremble, her tail curl closer. Vera listened, her eyes never leaving his, her scales shimmering as if absorbing his words, her tail stilling as she leaned closer, her claws resting lightly on his hand. A touch that was both fierce and tender, a bridge between their worlds, a vow that burned brighter than any star. She spoke of her dreams, buried beneath duty, beneath war. Dreams of a Carzal where children could laugh, where warriors could rest, where strength meant more than blades, more than blood, where her people could learn from humans, from their hope, their resilience, their heart. Her voice hesitant but growing stronger with each word, her tail swaying as if to the rhythm of his lullaby, her scales shimmering with a warmth that matched his smile, her amber eyes glistening with a hope she hadn't dared feel, a hope that was his gift, and hers to embrace. Daniel shared his own dreams, of an Earth that stood tall, of colonies that thrived, of a galaxy where no one was dismissed, where every voice mattered, where his people could sing under open skies, where his mother's lullaby could echo through the stars, his voice soft but steady, his hazel eyes bright with a determination that matched her fire, a determination that made her heart race, her scales shimmer, her claws tighten around his hand, a silent vow to stand with him, to fight for him, to love him. Their words wove together, a tapestry of scales and skin, of fire and hope, of worlds so different yet bound by something deeper, something that grew in the quiet spaces between them, something that burned brighter with every moment they shared. A love that defied the galaxy's cold indifference, a love that was as fierce as a blade, as enduring as a star, as gentle as a lullaby. One night, as the station's lights dimmed to mimic a Valthran twilight, its purples and golds painting the viewport, Vera leaned in, her lips grazing his forehead. A Kha'Vren gesture of trust, rare and sacred, a vow deeper than words, her scales warm against his skin, her tail curling around his bed, its silver rings glinting in the soft light, a silent promise of forever, her amber eyes glistening with unshed tears, a vulnerability she'd never shown, a vulnerability that was as fierce as her blade, as enduring as her resolve, as gentle as his lullaby, a vulnerability that was hers to give and his to hold. Daniel's breath caught, his hand finding hers, their fingers entwining, human skin against Kha'Vren scales. A bridge between worlds, a spark that burned brighter than any star, a warmth that filled the silence, the lullaby's notes weaving through the moment, a melody that spoke of eternity, a melody that carried their love, their hope, their future. The narrator's voice swells with warmth, painting the scene with vivid emotion. In a galaxy that prized strength, it was a human's heart that changed everything. Daniel Carter, ordinary yet extraordinary, showed Vera Tkar that courage wasn't in the body, but in the soul, that strength wasn't in the blade, but in the heart, that love wasn't a weakness, but a fire that could light the stars. And in that moment, two worlds found something greater than power. Love, a flame that burned across the stars, unyielding, eternal, a flame that defied the galaxy's cold, a flame that promised a future where strength and heart could coexist, where hope could thrive, where love could conquer all. Their bond grew in stolen moments, quiet conversations in the station's arboretum, where bioluminescent vines cast soft light on their faces, their glow reflecting in Vera's scales as she spoke of her dreams for her people, dreams she'd never dared voice before, her tail swaying to the rhythm of his words, her amber eyes bright with a hope she hadn't dared feel, a hope that was his gift and hers to embrace. Shared glances during tense negotiations, where Vera's tail would brush Daniel's leg, a silent reassurance that grounded him, her scales warm against his skin, her amber eyes bright with a pride that was as much for him as for her victories, a pride that made his heart race, his smile widen, his resolve strengthen. And nights spent watching Valthera's storms, their hands entwined, their differences fading against the vastness of the stars. The planet's rings a shimmering promise of something new, something worth fighting for, something worth loving. Vera began to question her people's ways, the relentless pursuit of strength that left no room for vulnerability, the wars that defined her life but offered no peace, the code that bound her but also chained her, a code that saw love as weakness, but which she now saw as strength, as fire, as hope. She spoke of change, of a future where the Kha'Vren could learn from humans, from their hope, their resilience, their ability to find light in the darkest places. their ability to love despite their fragility, their ability to dream despite their fleeting lives. Her voice hesitant but growing stronger with each word, her tail swaying as if to the rhythm of that lullaby, her scales shimmering with a warmth that matched Daniel's smile, her amber eyes glistening with a hope she hadn't dared feel, a hope that was his gift and hers to embrace, a hope that made her want to be more, to be worthy of him, to be worthy of their love. Daniel, in turn, found in her a strength that inspired him to be more than he'd ever thought possible, a courage that went beyond survival to something greater, connection, purpose, love, a fire that burned brighter than any star, a fire that made him want to stand taller, to fight harder, to love deeper. He shared his own fears, of failing Earth, of being too small to matter in a galaxy so vast, of losing the hope that had kept him going, of losing her. His voice soft but steady, his hazel eyes bright with a determination that matched her fire, a determination that made her heart race, her scales shimmer, her claws tighten around his hand. A silent vow to stand with him, to fight for him, to love him, a vow that burned brighter than any star, a vow that was hers to give, and his to hold. He taught her earth songs, humming melodies that made her tail sway, her scales shimmering with delight, her amber eyes bright with a joy she'd never known, her laughter, a rare, rich sound, echoing in the arboretum, a sound that made his heart race, a sound he wanted to hear forever, a sound that was as fierce as her blade, as enduring as her resolve, as gentle as his lullaby. She taught him Kha'Vren battle forms, laughing when he stumbled, her claws steadying him, her touch lingering, her tail curling around him in a gesture that was both protective and intimate, her scales warm against his skin, her amber eyes bright with a pride that was as much for his effort as for his progress, a pride that made his heart race, his smile widen, his resolve strengthen, a pride that was hers to give and his to hold. They sparred under the arboretum's vines, their movements a dance of trust, of learning, of growing closer, their breaths mingling in the cool air, their laughter a harmony that drowned out the station's hum, their touches a language that needed no words, a language of scales and skin, of fire and hope, of strength and heart, a language that was theirs alone, a language that burned brighter than any star, a language that spoke of love, of trust, of a future together. Their worlds, so different, began to weave together, a tapestry of scales and skin, of fire and hope, of strength and heart, a bond that defied the galaxy's cold indifference, a love that was as fierce as a blade, as enduring as a star, as gentle as a lullaby, a love that promised a future where they could stand together, where they could fight together, where they could love together, a future worth everything. The story closes with the Celestine spire orbiting Valthera, its lights a beacon in the dark, a symbol of fragile unity in a fractured galaxy. Its halls quiet now, the treaties signed, the battles won, but the true victory found in the hearts of two souls who dared to see beyond their worlds, who dared to love despite the galaxy's scorn, who dared to hope despite its darkness. Daniel and Vera stand together at a viewport, watching the planet's rings shimmer, their hands entwined. A human and a Kha'Vren, defying a galaxy that underestimated them both. Their bond a testament to what courage and love could achieve. A testament to the fire that burned in their hearts. A fire that burned brighter than any star. A fire that promised a future together. A future worth fighting for. A future worth loving. Vera's tail curls slightly around Daniel's leg. A gesture of protection and trust. Her scales reflecting the starlight. Her amber eyes soft but fierce. Her claws resting lightly on his arm. A silent vow of forever. A vow that was as fierce as her blade, as enduring as her resolve, as gentle as his lullaby. A vow that was hers to give and his to hold. Daniel hums that lullaby, its notes soft in the quiet. A melody about stars that never faded. A melody that carried his mother's love, his people's hope, his own heart. A melody that wove through their bond. A melody that spoke of eternity. A melody that was theirs alone. A melody that burned brighter than any star. Vera's tail sways, her scales shimmering, her heart open in a way she never thought possible, her amber eyes glistening with a warmth that matched his smile, a warmth that promised a future together, a warmth that defied the galaxy's cold, a warmth that was love, pure and fierce and eternal. The narrator's voice lingers, soft and triumphant, painting the scene with vivid emotion. For in the vastness of the cosmos, it was not might that endured, but the unyielding heart of humanity, and the love that bound two souls across the stars, a flame that no darkness could extinguish, a legacy that would echo through the ages, proving that even the smallest spark can light the way for a galaxy reborn, a future where strength and heart walked hand in hand, where hope thrived in the darkest places, where love was the greatest victory of all, a victory that burned brighter than any star, a victory that was Daniel and Vera's, a victory that was humanity's, a victory that was love.